Horses have less room in a stall than what a human being has in a jail cell. And I want that to sink in. Hey bitch, and welcome back to another video of me talking about people I hate. But really, for this video. So today, I'm gonna be destroying everybody's previous beliefs on why stalling a horse is good when in reality, it's actually one of the worst things that you can do to a horse. So please stop doing it and share this video with anybody else who's putting their horses in stalls. But before we get into today's video, I want to say a huge, massive thank you to this video's sponsor, which is Animal Nutrition Calculator. Thank you so much for sponsoring me. As you guys know, if you follow on my community tab, I have recently partnered with this brand and I'm so excited to be a brand ambassador. We just had a soft launch for the website a couple days ago, and we have horse, dog, and cat nutrition calculators that are for free and available to use on the website. They calculate your dog, cat, or horse's base daily caloric intake for healthy adults. We did get a few people who were asking questions about, I have a young horse or a young dog, a young cat, an old horse, dog, or cat. Dogs, cats, and horses that were under or over the weight limits that we have. Don't worry, we do have you guys covered. We are coming out with premium calculators for horses, dogs, and cats that will cover all of the other, nutritional requirements, vitamin, mineral breakdowns. So those premiums will be launching soon. It's really important that people not only feed their animals the correct diet, but understand their animals' nutritional needs and requirements. This is one of the biggest reasons why so many animals are deficient, underweight, overweight, have health issues. Really, the whole idea behind this company is just to better the health and wellness of animals around the world. And I would love to hear your feedback. So thank you so much to Animal Nutrition Calculator for sponsoring this video and for being so great and working with me. I truly appreciate it. Now, let's get into this video, destroying the hearts and minds of horse lovers around the world. God, stalling really is just such a heated topic, and I don't even understand why. Why do people just blatantly defend stalling when it's so obviously wrong? Like, guys, how many vet studies do we need? It should be just blatantly obvious that stalling a horse is bad. Horses roam 30 to 40 miles a day when they're left out in the wild. And people think that putting their horse in a 12 by 12 box is good for them and that their horse wants to do it. No. Before we get into anything, I think it's super important to address this point at the very beginning. Human beings do what's called projecting their own feelings and emotions onto animals. Every single person who believes that their horse likes their stall, you're doing that. In order for you to actually pay attention to the information I'm going to put out in this video, you have to be aware that you need to stop projecting your feelings and emotions onto your horses, okay? Your horse might be conditioned to go into a stall every night and is just content with it because they have to do it so often. That doesn't mean that your horse likes it. Just because they walk into the stall every night, because again, they're conditioned to go into it every night, that doesn't mean that they like going into the stall. Horses biologically do not like stalls and are not designed to live in stalls. So we need to look at this objectively. I mean, for fuck's sake, a 1,200-pound animal is not designed to live in a 12 by 12 box. Take your emotions and just throw them in the trash and then set it on fire, okay? Because I don't care about your emotions. We're gonna look at this objectively. Horses require daily 342 square meters, not square feet, square meters of roaming space at minimum to stay mentally sound and mentally healthy. For your reference, a stall is 13 square meters. So, you've got 342 square meter minimums every day versus a stall, which is 13 square meters. A human jail cell is 6 foot by 8 foot. A horse stall is 12 foot by 12 foot. The average size horse is 1,200 pounds. The average size human is 180 pounds. Horses are 1,020 pounds on average larger than humans. Horses have less room in a stall than what a human being has in a jail cell. And I want that to sink in. There have been numerous vet studies that suggest that horses require 24/7 access to turnout in order to stay mentally and physically healthy. Overall, these studies suggest that stalling horses for long periods of time can have negative health effects, including digestive problems, respiratory issues, joint and muscle problems, behavioral issues, reduced immune system function. It is important for horse owners to provide adequate turnout time and environmental enrichment to promote the health and well-being of their horses. Horses should not only have the largest space possible, but they should have as much turnout time as you can possibly give them, preferably no less than 8 hours of turnout time a day. A study published in the Journal of Animal Science found that stabled horses had a higher rate of colic and gastric ulcers compared to horses that were turned out to pasture for part or most of the day. The study suggests that the lack of grazing and increased stress associated with stalling can contribute to these digestive issues in horses. Another study published in the Equine Veterinary Journal found that horses stabled in poorly ventilated barns had higher rates of respiratory problems, including coughing, nasal discharge. The study also suggests that the buildup of dust and other irritants in the stall can contribute to these respiratory issues. Another study published in the Journal of Equine Veterinary Science found that horses that were stabled for long periods of time had higher rates of stiffness and decreased range of motion in their joints. The study suggests that the lack of movement and exercise associated with stalling can contribute to these joint and muscle problems. A study published in the Journal of Applied Animal Welfare Science found that horses that were stabled for long periods of time had high rates of stereotypic behaviors, such as cribbing and weaving. This study suggests that the lack of social interaction and environmental enrichment associated with stalling can contribute to these behavioral problems. And finally, another study published in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine found that horses that were stabled for long periods of time had lower levels of certain immune markers, suggesting that a decreased immune function is present. This study suggests that the lack of exposure to natural environmental stimuli and increased stress associated with stalling can contribute to this reduced immune function. So, is stalling a horse medically and mentally bad for their health? Yes. And these are not the only studies. These are just the studies that I wanted to go over and talk about. Trust me, there's a myriad of studies, a whole laundry list, girl. But there's always going to be those few people that no matter how much medical data and veterinary data you put in front of their face, they always have dumb reasons. We're going to start out with the first and only valid reason I hear from people about stalling their horses that's not medically related, and that is necessity. Now, here's the thing. I have been at points in my life where I have lived in certain areas where there just wasn't access to big pastures. I get it. If you are in a situation like that, here's what you need to do. You need to acknowledge that your horse is going to live a lesser quality of life. And that's a burden that you have to bear on your shoulders every day. You have to try to make their life as enriching as possible, given how little space and stimuli they have. Meaning that you need to get them toys, you need to get them boredom busters, all those types of things for their stall. You also need to try to put them in the biggest possible stall, preferably with a run. With Link, I put him in a stall that also had a 35-foot by 12-foot run off the back. So it was more of a paddock. It wasn't the best, but it was still better than being in a 12 by 12 stall. I still, to this day, have never been in a situation where I had no access to anything bigger than a 12 by 12 box. Every place I've ever lived at and had my horse at, even in LA, had access to a big run. Then you also need to give your horse as much daily turnout time as possible. Link would be in turnout for 8 to 10 hours a day. And that is how you can work with this if you are in a situation where stalling is absolutely necessary. But it's almost never necessary unless you live in a major city. You're probably just choosing to board at that specific barn because they have something that you like there, or amenities, or your lesson teacher is there, or something like that. Guess what? That's selfish, and you can keep your horse somewhere else where they'll have a nicer life. If you love your horse and you care about your horse, that's what you'll do. Because a lot of times when I hear people say, I keep my horse in a stall for necessity, there's a boarding facility 5 minutes down the road that allows pasture board. That's not necessity. Necessity is not, I like this barn and this barn doesn't offer pasture, so I'm just gonna stay and force my horse to live a shitty life and not move him 5 minutes down the road to the next barn that does offer pasture. Huge difference. Next, we've got to talk about weather. I hear this all the time, and I even went over it in my last video. Horses don't get cold like humans do. Horses also don't get hot like humans do. When I talked about how horses could withstand up to -5 degrees Fahrenheit comfortably without a blanket, normal healthy horses, we're not talking sick or old horses or babies. Normal healthy adult horses can withstand -5 degrees Fahrenheit comfortably, which is -20 degrees Celsius comfortably without a blanket. And it almost never gets that cold. But a lot of people were talking about heat. Oh, well, in the summertime, I like keeping my horse inside because it gets really hot. Guess what? Horses have tons of sweat glands all over their body. They're really easily able to thermoregulate, and they can sweat, I think, upwards of 5 gallons of water an hour. So as long as your horse has access to plenty of water and shade in the summertime where they can get out of the sun, your horse is fine and they don't need to be stalled. They can regulate their body temperature in the cold and the heat. Same thing as what I talked about in the cold, how a lot of people think that because their horse has icicles that their horse is freezing. No, your horse is actually regulating their body temperature incredibly well, which is the reason why the icicles on your horse are not melting, because your horse is retaining their body heat inside their body for thermoregulation. And they're not letting that excess heat leave their body, which would in turn melt the icicles. So that's how you know that your horse is regulating their body temperature, is you see icicles on them. Chances are your horse is not cold. The whole weather excuse really just boils down to babying, and a lot of people really, again, like to push their feelings and emotions onto their horses and say, well, I'm cold, my horse must be cold. I'm hot, my horse must be hot. And the thing is, horses just don't work that way. Next, we have to talk about predators. This was one of the other biggest excuses why I heard people, specifically people who stall their horses at night, say that they stall their horses. Horses are actually the least hunted prey animals among all livestock. Horses are actually the least likely to be attacked by predators or hunted by predators, and attacks by predators on horses are extremely rare. Mountain lions are only likely to attack foals, not full-grown horses. I can understand the predator excuse if you have a foal. I get it. Most people don't have foals that are using the predator excuse, and most people don't understand that horses are not these just helpless animals. This study goes in depth on how animal social strategies are of importance when avoiding predation. Since horses are the least hunted among all farm species, we suppose that the alert reaction to predator vocalization followed by anti-predator social behavior still exist in domesticated horses. The behavior of studied horses in this study expressed alertness and defensive formations, indicating an existence of social anti-predator behavior, which in turn explains the low rates of horses that are falling prey to predators as compared to other farm animal species. So horses have this amazing ability to work together to recognize predators in their area and avoid attacks. Again, horses are not these like helpless animals that just need babying. Now, sure, you might get the one-off chance that a predator attacks your horse, even though it's incredibly unlikely to happen. But the likelihood that your horse is going to be seriously injured or killed is even less likely. Which brings me to my next excuse is stalling at night. Oh, well, I only stall at night, so it's not that bad. It is bad. Because nighttime lasts for 8 to 12 hours, sometimes even more in certain places in the world during certain times of the year. That is literally half the day that your horse is spending in a 12 by 12 jail cell. That is not acceptable in any way. And although you might think that it's okay because it's just at night, I guarantee you your horse does not want to be locked in there. Horses can see very well at night and they're safer in herds. In turn, your horse is probably safer outside. Link lives outside on pasture full time. I've never had any issues. This brings me to my very last excuse that I see people say. And honestly, if you're one of these people, you're just a bad person. And not many people will admit that this is the category they fall under, but more than 50% of people who keep horses in stalls, this is the category that they fall under. And that is looks and convenience. A lot of people stall their horses because they think it's a status thing. They think that because it costs more money and it looks prettier to keep your horse in the barn, that it's the thing that they should do and that their horse is going to live a better life because, oh, I pay $1,000 a month instead of $500 to keep my horse on pasture. I know because I know so many people who are exactly like this, and this is possibly the dumbest thing that I've ever seen, but it happens, and a lot of people do this. People who are regularly using their horses for jumping dressage every day, and they don't want to go out to pasture and grab them, and they're just lazy. You know, honestly, if you're that lazy, you shouldn't even be riding. And I'm just going to be totally honest. If you're that lazy where you're going to force your horse to live a shit life because you don't want to walk a few extra feet and go grab them in pasture, like, I don't know what to tell you. You're just a bad person. So people who fall into this category of keeping their horse stalled because they like it, because looks and convenience, yeah, you're just a bad person. And I don't even know what else to say to you because you're never going to get through to somebody who's willing to sacrifice the quality of life that their animal is going to have for status for themselves. Like, whatever that does for you, I don't even know. If there is a valid reason to put your horse in the stall, what is it? I've heard a lot of excuses, and I've studied this quite a lot, and the only valid reason to put your horse in a stall is medical. If a veterinarian actually comes to you and says your horse needs to be on stall rest. So now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, I hope that it makes it a little bit clearer to you why people are just wrong for stalling horses. And you have to look at this objectively. Horses are animals. They need to be able to be horses, exist as horses. Not just exist in a stall, dead. They need to exist as horses. They need to be out running, playing, interacting with herds. They need to be exercising, grazing. They need to be horses. They need to be allowed to be a fucking horse. Stalling should not be normalized. It's wrong. I want people to imagine if they were a 1,200-pound animal that was supposed to roam 20 to 30 to 40 miles a day and graze and have herds and relationships, families. Imagine if somebody took all of that away from you and put you in a box, and that was your life every day. Just pissing and shitting in a box. Maybe sometimes twice a day they bring you a little bit of hay to munch on. But otherwise you're just staring at bars. Imagine that being your life. I really want you to imagine that. So next time you think about stalling a horse, next time you think about the environment that your horse lives in, I really want you to ask yourself, can my horse be a horse in this environment? And if the answer is no, then go somewhere else. Just care more about your horses, dude. Like, this is just, it's unbelievable to me that this video even has to be made. That people would even defend stalling a horse. Just unreal. Anyway, though, you guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Thank you again to Animal Nutrition Calculator for sponsoring this. Definitely check them out. Again, the Facebook page is brand new, so if you guys want to go over and follow that, that would help out a bunch. But I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.